Assalamu alaikum, my friends. Remember this? What is this? This is that Qur'an Year Timeline. We're building it into its final form. Before you go on with today's episode, make sure you look at the link below. It is a free giveaway. It is a free PDF that you can download when you go to my website, therevelationexperience.com. Go there, join the forum, get a free download of the Qur'an Year Timeline. One copy filled in with all the answers, one blank, so that you can fill it in yourself as you go through this episode with me. Now, let's do that intro. Welcome back to the Revelation Experience, my friends. In the previous episode, we covered a lot of material. We talked about this idea of what is the story of Revelation from Adam to Muhammad, peace upon him. And I mentioned some major themes that are coming up, themes of transformation, themes of living a life powerful. You're special, about growth, about not living in fear or grief or any regrets, living powerfully with sincerity, with purpose, never feeling like you have to give up, because faith is a process, always beginning from the core of why you are doing what you're doing with a sincere intention. A lot of this stuff we covered in previous episodes, and we were going to get into a lot of these details in future episodes as well. But we tied all of that to the Qur'an Year Timeline that we are building, and so far we have built this. Remember, we started with this model, which I have right here, if I can put it together, and this is the download bar, as we talked about before, right? The Quranic Year Timeline, and what we did is we took this and we transformed this, we kind of turned it on its head, so that we have now the Meccan period, which is 12 years, and the Medinan period, which is 11 years, right? Now, if you need to refresh that, feel free to refresh that in the previous episode, but today we're going to be trucking forward because we got a lot to do. We're going to break this down. I'm going to give you the basic understanding of how to understand the major themes in the life of the Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him, and the major themes of how the Quran was revealed. So we are talking about this Qur'an Year Timeline as we have it so far, and we have these Qur'an years 1 through 23. What we're going to do is we're going to start cutting up this pie, as it were. I like to call it a pie when I teach my son this. And my son, he's still very young and he knows this material. So this is going to be very easy for you guys, okay? We're going to cut this pie into 4 pieces right here, okay? So let's cut it right down the middle like this. And when we do that, that alone already, we kind of know this already. That gave us the Meccan period in blue on this side right here, and the Medinan period over here on the right, okay? So we have the Meccan period and Medinan period just from slicing it right down the middle, and that's what's beautiful about the circular timeline. It works out really well when you look at it spatially. The next thing we're gonna do is that, we gotta share this pie with 4 people, so we have to cut it in half this way also, so that we can get 4 equal quadrants. And from now on, when you listen to me speak in these videos or in my podcast and so forth, I will refer to things as, oh, this was in the first quadrant, the second quadrant, the third quadrant, or the fourth quadrant. So I tend to refer to things as quadrants, because that way you can know, oh, it was happening in the beginning, or in the middle periods, or in the end. So these are the 4 quadrants, okay? And what I want to do today is I want to give you some mnemonics that help you understand the major events that break the life of the Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him, his career, into 4 major sections, 4 major themes, okay? And this is actually a lot of fun because it's a simple mnemonic. Now, just as a little background on me, I'm a physician, and going through medical school, one of the first things that medical students learn, because there's just so much information that you have to get through, is to use mnemonics, memory tricks, whatever you can do to master the information. So I love mnemonics because they're simple, they're easy, and it takes the pressure off of having to memorize all of this incredible data. So what we're going to do is we're going to begin with the mnemonic of the 4 H's. So this is a mnemonic of the 4 H's. And like I said, commit this to memory. I'm not going to ask you to memorize a lot, but this is worth it here. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the 4 H's, okay? The first H right here, let's dull out these numbers so we can kind of just call attention to the years that I want to talk about. The first H is going to be right here. And so we're seeing right here, year number 1, okay? So we're going to write an H, let's write it right up here, like that, okay? That's the first H, okay? Now the first H is up there. The second H is opposite to the first H. And so we're gonna write that H, let's just say, right down here, okay? Right there in year 13, okay? Very simple. H at the top, H at the bottom. Now the third H is gonna go right here, let's just say right above the line right here, And the fourth H is going to go exactly on their side above the line right here. So let's just put it right there. Okay, so we have 4 H's. It's like your 4 cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west, except these are H's. Now, one thing to be very clear about, because this can mess you up if you don't pay attention right here, is this H is at the beginning right here. This H is on the other side of the line, on this side. However, these 2 H's are both above the line right here and right here. And so what we see here is that this is in year 1, this is in year 6, this is in year 13, and this right here is in year 19, not 18, because it's above the line in 19. Now, what I want to do is I want to talk about what these H's represent, because these are all mnemonics for it. So to understand the Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him, you kind of have to go back to that period of time before he was a prophet, from 1 to 40, okay? By the time he was in his 30s and his 40s, he was a father of 4 daughters. He actually had 6 children, but 2 sons he actually passed away in a very young age, and he had to bury them by himself, right? So he had 4 daughters at this point, and he was married to the love of his life, a lady by the name of Sayyidina Khadija. Her name was Khadija. And the Prophet Muhammad loved her. He was a very family-centric man, and he spent all of his time either going out working to provide for his family or spending quality time with his family in the house. And this is one of the most important practices of Muslims, is to spend and invest as much time as possible with your family. Now, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, would do this. But one of the things that he liked to do, especially as he was getting into his late 30s, is, see, he was an avid outdoorsman. And I love describing him like this because I like to be outdoors also. So he was a backpacker. He was a hiker. He used to love to climb the mountains outside, to free his mind, to get away from, the inner city of Mecca and so forth, and just be with nature. And he would like to, meditate. He would like to clear his mind, to get away from it all. Just like, we like to do now. I need to get to the country. I need to get away. Here living in Arizona, I feel the same way. I love to get out into the desert, see open spaces and clear my mind. Well, the Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him, was the same way. And one of his favorite places he would like to go to was these caves in the hills outside of Mecca. His favorite cave was a cave by the name of Hira. And so we're going to replace this H with that first cave right there, and that is called the Cave of Hira. Let's see if we can bring that up here. Okay, so we're replacing that H with Hira right here. That's the first mnemonic, okay? The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, would go to these caves, this cave in particular, and he would meditate. He would clear his mind. He was looking for answers. What is the purpose of life? Now, I don't know exactly what he was asking, but I can only imagine, what's going on in my society? See, he was born into Mecca. Arabia and Arabians, they had awesome, amazing nobility, generosity, honor, chivalry. This was all very important to them. But what he was witnessing in his own lifetime is this destruction of this moral, ethical way of life, because money was pouring into the city. The rich were getting richer, the poor were getting poorer, the tribal ethic was eroding, things were getting ugly in his own lifetime, okay? And I bet many of you don't have to go far to imagine this, because we are seeing this right now in the 21st century with rampant capitalism, wealth inequality, consumerism, isolation, social media. A lot of us are feeling this way of like, what's going on? Something is not right. There's a disequilibrium. And in many ways, we need to get back to something more beautiful, more pure. We need to get out into nature just to clear our mind. Well, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, probably felt the same way. And so he went to the cave of Hira to meditate. And one day, while he was in the cave of Hira, he received his first revelation. And we'll go into the details of that. But suffice it to say that that moment right there kicked off, from the moment of Hira, it kicked off the clock of revelation. What do I mean by that? From this point on, the divine download begins. He got that first surah, that first chapter, Surah Al-Alaq, to telling the Prophet, peace be upon him, to read. And since that time, it begins 23 years, the divine download, until the very end. So the first H that you need to know is year 1, which is Hira. Now, that divine download happens for 12 years in Mecca. What is the Prophet being told to do? What is the revelation telling him to do? He is being told, first and foremost, remember there is only one God, the God of Abraham. Abraham, who built the Kaaba, the sanctuary where the Prophet, peace upon him, was born. There is one God. Be true to that one God. Turn away from the idols. This is all, false, mumbo jumbo that mankind has made up. Man was given the user's manuals from Adam to Noah to Abraham, Moses, Jesus. Turn back to one God. The same thing that all the prophets were sent to tell their people. And then secondly, take care of your fellow human beings, for the orphans, the widows, the poor, the downtrodden, those who don't have what the rest of society has. Give to them first. Re-establish the equilibrium financially, socially, morally, so that everyone is on the even playing field. Okay, these are the fundamentals of what Islam is asking us, and what it asked the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Tawheed. Believe in one God. Belief in the structure that God has created, the angels, the prophets, and so forth. Believe in God's goodness and His mercy, and then fight for justice. Fight for spreading mercy around the world. Now, you would think if you came with such a beautiful message like that, who would argue with that, right? Well, let me tell you this. Mecca at that time had built itself up as this kind of convention center, if you will. And Mecca had at the core of Mecca was the Kaaba, the sanctuary built by Abraham. But over years, idols had been brought into that sanctuary. And so now Mecca was like a convention center for idolatry. Bring your idols in. Come on, let's go. Whatever you want, bring them in. And if you want to have an idol that you worship somewhere else in Arabia, when you come to visit us in Mecca, your idol will be there. Come one, come all. That was like the sign, okay? It was like it was an attraction. And so people who would be trading up and down the trade routes would always stop in Mecca, because this was this huge pantheon to all the gods. Now, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is now calling for eliminating all of those gods, returning to one God. He's also calling for the redistribution of wealth, the redistribution of assets, so that people with less can have more, specifically the most vulnerable, the orphans, the widows, those who are poor, those who are what we call miskeen, right, downtrodden and so forth. This is not a popular message. And let me give you an example. Say, for example, I went to Las Vegas, which is built on the gambling industry, which has incredible social, inequality, wealth inequality. You have these huge casino magnates, and you have people who are sleeping on the streets, right? And I go there and I start telling people, hey, you know what? Let's stop this gambling. This is nonsense. This is just a waste of money and a waste of diversion, and it's dirty, and look at all the nudity and so forth. Let's get rid of the gambling industry. Let's restore dignity to humankind. Let's move money from those who have too much to those who don't have any, and so forth. Do you think I would be popular in Las Vegas? Even though it's a sensible message, absolutely not. They would run me out of town, because I am calling to take down the very reason why Las Vegas is here in the first place, right? If there was no gambling, there would be no Las Vegas. So in the same way, to threaten, to attack the idols is threatening the Meccan way of life. It's threatening the power structure that is there at the time. And so the Prophet Muhammad, even though he has a very sensible message, the message that was given to all the other prophets before, he gets a lot of friction. Throughout the entire blue period, the Meccan period, a lot of opposition, and the powers that be, the most influential, are the ones who are leading the opposition against the Prophet Muhammad. Now, this is not uncommon. I mean, this is the first time that we've seen someone who's calling for social justice, who's calling to break down the evil infrastructure that has created social imbalances in society. Is this the first time that someone has come with that and has been chased out of town? This is not the first time. This is history repeating itself over and over and over again. I mean, we saw that even, in the story of Jesus, peace be upon him, that he came with a message for his people, and he was attacked for that. We've seen that with Noah, with everybody. So this is the play of the prophets, okay? The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is doing this throughout Mecca. It gets so bad that he is realizing that they are trying to kill him. And so in year 13, down here, he actually migrates. He leaves as an exile his city of Mecca that he lived in for 52 years, and he goes to the northern hamlet called Yathrib, later to be known as Medina. And that event that he did that in happened in year 13 right here, and that's called, let's erase this H, it starts with an H, we know that. It's called right here, the Hijrah. Okay, so we already have two events right now. We have Hira up here, which started the timeline, and it ends right here at year 12, and this is the Meccan period. And then the Hijrah, which means migration, begins the second period, the second half of the Quranic journey, the prophetic journey, all the way to the end right here. So Hira and Hijrah, they separate from one side and the other side. Now we have two more H's that we have to get to, so let's get to those right now. Now before I talk about this H right here, understand, as I said before, that when the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, came with this message of equality, equity, justice, oneness of God first and foremost, he got a lot of opposition. And the people who were following the Prophet, many were his friends and family. Some were in that middle, kind of middle class, I guess, middle influence level. And there were a lot of people at the lower levels who had nothing to lose by following the Prophet's message, but everything to gain, right? Because they were the orphans, they were the poor, they were the downtrodden, they were the servants, right, of the serving class and so forth. They're like, yes, what happened to human dignity? And so they rose up to join the Prophet's message, peace be upon him. Now, the powers that be, the Arabs, the rich people, they don't like this. And when they don't like something, they're going to suppress that. And the way they try to do that to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is to attack him as an individual and then attack all the other individuals who are following the Prophet, peace be upon him. The persecution got so bad, they even killed servants. Right? Abyssinian servants. These are people who nowadays, if you looked at them, you say, oh, they look like African Americans. They're black. And the Arabs had a racism against black people, and they persecuted black folk, and they even killed some of them because they chose to follow the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon his message of oneness of God and justice for humanity, right? So, in this period of time, you have a lot of personal persecution, really difficult stories of abuse, torture, and death. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is feeling the weight of this. It's hurting him because he's seeing how his followers are dying following his message. And so he hopes and he prays to God, could you please send me one of the influential people from the other side to join my side? Someone who's an influencer, someone with status and sway, who can help build up the ranks of my team, because right now we are really getting beat down. And what happens in year 6 is he gets the answer to that prayer. And he gets it in the form of, yes, guess it, another H, in the conversion of not one, but 2 heavy power players in Mecca. And it's the name Hamza and Omar. Hamza was the Prophet's uncle, peace be upon him, who was roughly the same age as the Prophet, and he was a tough man. People were scared of Hamza because he was very intimidating. He had a lot of presence. And the same with a young man, a 26-year-old man named Omar. For those of you who have heard the name Omar, you know, Omar's a very common name in Arabia and in Hispanic, Spanish culture and so forth. All of those people named Omar, they take their name back to this person right here. This is the first famous Omar, right? And so Hamza and Omar convert in year 6, Qur'an year 6. When they convert, you know, I often use this example of basketball. It's as if the Prophet Muhammad has this basketball team, and a lot of them are just kind of, you know, scrawny, and they can't defend themselves. And all of a sudden, he gets the best point guard and power forward from the opposite team. They take off their jerseys and they put on the jersey of Muhammad, peace be upon him, and they join the Prophet's team. Now what happens? When they do that, the Quraysh get very stressed out. Oh my God, we just lost like our 2 best, like our strongest players. They just left to go the other side. So what was this kind of little kind of threat that they thought they could squash and kind of just put their thumb on or put their knee on the neck of that movement? What happens? Now they're like, oh my gosh, this is serious. This is much more serious than we ever imagined before. Muhammad has taken Umar. Muhammad has taken Hamza. We got to get serious about this. And so what happens is in the next 6 years, from right here to here, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, starts seeing a organized persecution, not just against individuals here and there, the weakest members of society. The Quraysh decide, you know what, we are going to organize a persecution against the entire group. And that's what you see in the second quadrant right here. That organized persecution gets so bad that then we see the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, with all of his followers, they leave Mecca and they go to this neighboring northern place of Medina. Now that is roughly I think between 300 and 400 miles away, if I remember correctly. It's almost the distance between Los Angeles and San Francisco, or the distance from going from Washington, D.C. up to New York City. So that's how far away it is. It's a good distance away. Prophet Muhammad was like, we just need to get away from these guys. Leave us alone. Let us do our thing. So what happens? Well, when they leave, you would think that the Meccans would leave the Prophet alone, but they're so threatened by him, they're so agitated by this person and what he's calling to, that they actually go and attack the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in his new dwelling, right? In this northern place, 400 miles away. They go and chase him up there. They will not leave him alone. And they are attacking him and attacking the Muslims. And so what you see in this quadrant right here is battles upon battles until the next fourth H. Okay, so this third quadrant right here is very difficult. A lot of battles, a lot of defensive fighting on the part of the Muslims just trying to survive. It's also the period of time where they're building a new community because they have the autonomy to build their own community. This period of fighting, it ends with the fourth H. And the fourth H right here is a treaty by the name of, let's erase this H right here, the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. Okay, so, and if the names are difficult right now, don't worry about it. Take your time with it, but you will ultimately know these names, God willing, because these are like the four cardinal points, the four directions, the four major dividers of the life of the Prophet Muhammad. So what happens is that this difficult time from the Hijrah ends with this treaty, and that treaty says no more fighting. You guys do your thing, we'll do our thing, unless someone breaks the terms of the treaty. And that treaty is called the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. Now, that treaty ushers in this last fourth quadrant, and this fourth quadrant is a period of peace, of growth and prosperity, because there's a treaty now, there's peace now, and that we see amazing things unfold now. Okay, final touches, not just to the career of the Prophet Muhammad, but remember, this is a timeline of Quranic revelation. A lot of the Quran was revealed in this quadrant right here. You will see just a little bit. There's a couple more surahs, a couple more revelations that have to come down, like the surah from Surah Al-Ma'idah, which says, the verse is saying, this day, this way of life has been perfected, and it's called Islam. So you're seeing like the finishing touches to the Quran and the cherry on top, the last verses to finish this divine download. Okay, so when you look at this right now, what we see is that we have Hira right here to Hamza and Umar. Hamza and Umar, it keeps going like this, right, until you get to the Hijrah. When you're at the Hijrah right here, it keeps going up like this until you get to Hudaybiyah. And then Hudaybiyah right here, it keeps going until the death of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, which happens in Quran year 23. So this, my friends, you're starting to see the journey of the Prophet, peace be upon him, the journey of how the Quran was revealed. Now, there's one more H I just want to throw in there. When I teach this, I always say 4 H's. I'm trying to keep it simple. But just as a little extra bonus right now, the last year is when the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, makes the Hajj, the pilgrimage. And that happens to start with an H. So for those of you who just want a little extra credit, your goody two-shoes out there, we'll throw an extra H in right here, and that just nails it down. So now you have the Hajj, which happened in the final year. So take a look at this. Just take a step back for a second, guys. There are 23 major events in the life of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, that I like to use to kind of divide his life up. Of them, you've already learned 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You've learned 5 of the major 23 events in his life in like 2 seconds, and like how hard was that, right? It makes total sense. 5 H's, totally easy to remember. Okay, so what's 23 minus 5? 18. We have 18 more to go. Now those 18 others we're going to do in the next episode right here. Right now what I want to do is I want to finish this by just summarizing this to drive the point home. See, one of the things that I have found when people study the life of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, or anything in general, they get very like, what's the word, nitty gritty about the details. Oh, did you know this and this? And, even if you buying something, a camera, did you know this camera has this, this, and this? And it's very easy to get into the details and the data, but most of those people don't know the whole picture because they're lost in the details. And what I think is really important before you go into the details to have this good zoomed out understanding of major themes. And that's why I like this presentation right here and the way I've broken it down, because it always allowed me to not get lost in all the details, but to remember the major themes. So remember, guys, we have 4 quadrants right here. We have the early Meccan quadrant, which is from Hira right up here to Hamza and Umar right here. It is from years 1 through 6. The early Meccan period is defined by the Prophet Muhammad peace be upon him coming out and warning the people around him and giving them good news that I am a messenger. Let me give you the fundamentals of belief. There is one God. Believe in the angels. Believe in the prophets from Adam, Noah, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, and all those in between. Believe in those prophets. Believe in the final day, accountability. You can't just do bad things and do evil to other people and not think you're not going to be called to task for it. There is a day of resurrection. There is a heaven and hell. There is a hereafter. Fight and work hard for the beauty of being close to God in the hereafter, okay? So all of these basic tenets of Islam are coming down the early Meccan period. Also, take care of the orphans, take care of the poor. You know, the best way to show thanks to God is to take care of other people and to spend of what He has given you in the way of others. So this is the basic early Meccan period, and the major theme that's happening this time is personal persecution. What? You're going to fight? You're going to declare that my gods are no good? These are the slave owners talking to those who have been enslaved. What? And they'll put their knee on their neck. They will kill them. They will punish them. They will torture them to try to get them to turn on their faith. And that's what you see as individual persecution in Mecca. That ends with the conversion of Hamza and Umar, because now the Muslim team in Mecca has gotten strong enough that the Meccans, or the Quraysh, the opposition is like, whoa. We can't just picking off one or two, it's not intimidating them enough. People are continually joining the Prophet's message, right? And we see this nowadays too, this scare tactics, just like a mob mentality, right? If someone in the mob doesn't like someone, they'll just like, well, you know what? I know where your daughter lives. I know where your mom lives. And they'll start, trying to get to the weakest link. That didn't work. So after the conversion of Hamza and Umar, we have the late Meccan period, which is the second quadrant from Quran year 7 to Quran year 12. The late Meccan period is, from the Quranic download perspective, we're talking about stories of the prophets, adding on layers of understanding of what does it mean to believe in the prophets and the angels, what does it mean to follow the righteous way, to purify oneself, to push down your ego, to raise up your generosity, to raise up your feelings of mercy, to imbue yourself with divine attributes. All of this stuff in the Meccan surahs of the Quran, the Meccan download. And what's going on the ground? You're seeing not individualized persecution, but organized persecution against the entire Muslim team together. All right. I often say it's like a basketball game. In the first quadrant, they were fouling individual players. Let's just knock them at the knees. Let's just injure this one player. Let's injure the guard. Let's injure the forward. In the second quadrant, they've stopped injuring people because that's not working. Because players will keep showing up on the court even if they're limping. That's how dedicated they are to the Prophet Muhammad peace be upon him. In the second quadrant, the Quraysh said, you know what? Get out of the gym. You don't get to play at all. Get out. No more basketball for you. And they kicked them out of Mecca to the outskirts of Mecca. Very difficult time. We'll go through this in more detail, where the Muslims are starving. They're near starvation. People are dying just from malnutrition and so forth. Very difficult time. It's so bad that this late Meccan period of organized persecution leads the Prophet Muhammad peace be upon him to just narrowly escape with his life and all of the Muslims to the third quadrant right here, which is the early Medinan period, which is Quran years 13 to 18. This period, like I said, battle upon battles till the Treaty of Hudaybiyah right here. Battle upon battle till Hudaybiyah is what I like to say about this thing. Fighting and so forth. When you look at the Quranic revelation this time, very different tone than everything in this blue Meccan period, because now for the first time the Muslims have autonomy. They are not a minority right now in terms of a persecuted minority. There still might be a minority in Medina, but they have autonomy to set up their own community. So what you're seeing in the Medinan surahs, these early Medinan surahs, is a lot of what we call Sharia, a lot of setting up community, setting up rules. How do you deal with marriage and divorce? How do you deal with inheritance issues because people are dying? How do you deal with different types of relationships? How do you deal with transactional law? All the things that you need to be autonomous as a community, you need to have rules to play by. And so God is sending down now in this period the rules to live by. Okay? A lot of the rules. See, Muslims, when we approach the Quran, like my own journey, remember from the first episode, a lot of the surahs I was listening to and I was reading, and the first surah, Surah Al-Baqarah, Surah Ali Imran, Surah Al-Ma'idah, Surah Al-Nisa, these are all surahs that were most revealed in this period. That's a brutal time, you know. Imagine just dropping someone into the fire right here, right? It's like a hard time. It's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Give me 12 years to get used to this book, used to this revelation, to buy into it, so that when you tell me what to do, I'm completely bought into the system. But if I haven't bought into the system, I'm not aware of it, I don't know what's going on, and you just throw me right into the oven, it's too hot, too fast, too soon, and I'm going to jump out of the oven because you're asking me to do this, this, and this, and this, and I don't even know why, and there's too many rules, and I can't do Islam, it's too hard, religion in general, I'd rather just live my life and be a happy person. And that's what happens to a lot of Muslims, because they have not gone through the divine recipe, right? The divine cooking plan. First, you got to get the dry goods together, then you add the milk, then you put it in the oven. Okay, it's like, I love analogies. I can't help it. I love them. So either you're playing basketball or you're baking cookies. One of the two. If you want the best smelling, best tasting cookies, you got to do it the right way. Okay, so you don't throw eggs in the oven, you got to mix it together, then you throw it in the oven. And the timer went off with the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. After the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, what happened? You have a period of growth and peace and prosperity. That is the late Medinan period, and it goes from Hudaybiyah all the way to the final Hajj, and very shortly after that, the death of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So a period of growth, peace, prosperity, perfection of the message. Whew! That's a lot, right? But it was so easy, wasn't it? What do you guys think about this? Let's take a step back and look at this whole picture right now. This, my friends, let me get rid of the arrows here so you can see this clearly here. Oh, yes. We are getting closer and closer, episode by episode. This is getting very close to finishing the Qur'an year timeline, and hopefully you're seeing how this is helpful, how we are not only knowing just very specific details, but also major overarching themes, and recognize that this is a journey. Journey of the Prophet, journey of the Qur'an, many more journeys to talk about in future episodes. So in future episodes, what we're going to do in the next episode, we're going to actually go through all 23 years. I'm going to give you all the mnemonics. After next episode, you're going to know everything. Okay, after that, see you later. No, hopefully not. We got a lot more to talk about. But we're going to go through early Mecca, all those six events in late Mecca with all the mnemonics, so it's easy to memorize. You will memorize it all in the episode. You won't have to study afterwards. You'll get this. I know you guys. We're going to go through the 6 events in early Medina, and then finally the 5 last years in late Medina. We're going to go through all of those. We're going to build out the Quran year timeline so that's powerful for you guys. You guys are going to know this inside out, and then we're going to start from the very beginning with Adam, and we're going to start and understand this faith. We're going to understand this religion, this power, this gift that we've been given to have huge, awesome, transformative possibilities in our own lives, so we can live beautiful, powerful lives for not just us, but we can live that for God and live it for those around us so that we can inspire everyone around us. So I hope this was helpful for you. If I went too fast, I apologize. I'm trying to keep these episodes quick, brief, concise, efficient. Feel free to watch it again and again. If you have some questions, you can go back to the previous episodes. Also, if you have questions, just message me in the comments, and I will try to get back to all of you. Would love to get your feedback on this, and if you have any suggestions on mnemonics coming up in this episode or in future ones, would love to hear them. I already got one from someone who just really, I'm going to probably incorporate in my second edition because it was so good. And finally, before I forget, we have a free giveaway for all of you who have watched this episode. If you go to my website, therevelationexperience.com, link down below, you can download a free PDF of the Quran year timeline. And more importantly, you can join thousands of other people who are joining this movement, the revelationexperience.com, this movement to start embracing the Quran and letting it have a transformational impact on you. So join the other thousands of people who have already signed up at the revelationexperience.com so that you can get those PDFs, see the courses that are available to you. You will have access to the free audiobook that I wrote right there. The entire free audiobook, over 100 episodes I am working on constantly, pumping them out. You will have complete access to that, completely free for you to enjoy. It is personal, it is powerful, and it has beautiful Quranic recitation interwoven into the experience itself. So all of that for you. Thanks so much for being a part of this episode. I can't wait to see you in the next episode, inshallah. I will see you guys soon. Assalamu alaikum.